The Therians had thoroughly studied the humans before launching their invasion. Their scientists had monitored transmissions from Earth for decades, analyzing human biology and society in meticulous detail. When the Grand Fleet arrived in the Sol system, the Therians were confident they knew everything there was to know about their enemy. They descended on the capital cities first, massive ships filling the skies as thousands of dropships landed. The humans resisted, but their weapons were no match for Therian plasma cannons and photon disruptors. Millions died in those initial hours, shredded by superior firepower. Yet the Therians were surprised to see that some humans refused to flee, taking cover in the ruins to continue fighting despite the hopeless odds. After securing the major population centers, the Therians began pushing out to subjugate the remainder of human civilization. They expected token resistance that would crumble quickly, but instead discovered that almost every human settlement, no matter how small or remote, fought back with astonishing tenacity. Therian patrols coming under constant guerrilla attack from opponents that simply refused to quit. The Therian High Command was baffled. They had studied the humans thoroughly and knew that individually they were fragile creatures compared to a Therian. Their bodies lacked natural armor or weaponry. They tired easily, requiring hours of sleep and regular sustenance. Pain often incapacitated them entirely. By all measures, the invasion should have been a simple exercise in conquest. Yet the humans persisted. No matter how many were killed, more appeared to continue the fight. They operated on minimal sleep and rations, finding ways to supply themselves despite the Therian blockade. Their primitive projectile weapons took a steady toll on Therian ground forces. Patrols were exhausted from near constant vigilance against guerrilla attacks that could come at any time, from any direction. Casualty rates began to climb. Therian commanders poring over data on human physiology and psychology struggled to understand how such physically weak creatures could fight on despite inevitable defeat. Theories ranged from biological defects that enabled insensitivity to pain, to latent psionic abilities allowing remote coordination of attacks. Still, the humans confounded every hypothesis. 8 months after first contact, the Therian invasion was bogging down. Dozens of ships and tens of thousands of troops had been lost, but the humans still refused to submit. Most of their major cities were occupied, yet raids and ambushes still happened daily. No amount of reprisals could deter them. The Therians wondered if they had encountered a species that did not know how to quit, that would fight to the last child regardless of the odds. General Zathar knew something had to change. As commander of the ground offensive, he had witnessed firsthand the humans' baffling perseverance. Conventional strategies were failing against this irrational enemy. Additional troops and ships were months away, but at this rate there might not be any humans left to conquer. The Grand Fleet's Council recommended switching to wholesale extermination of human population centers. Zathar's new orders were to destroy 10 major human cities for every Therian killed going forward. Perhaps such unchecked brutality would finally prove to the humans that their persistence was futile. Zathar hoped the threat alone would be enough without having to carry out systematic genocide. He despised that option, but rationality seemed lost on these humans. His ultimatum was met with defiance and intensified attacks. Human raids became suicide missions rather than retreat and evade. Captured soldiers sang battle hymns in their cells after horrific torture that should have left them catatonic. Zathar realized with dawning horror that the Grand Fleet fully intended for him to unleash horrors beyond imagining if the attrition did not stop. When the human counterattack came, it took the Therians completely by surprise. They expected more futile gestures, not a coordinated assault. Therian analysts assumed the tattered remnants of human military forces were at their breaking point. Instead, vast underground armies surged out of hiding that intelligence had never detected. They overran Therian bases and pushed them back from occupied cities in a massive offensive fueled by vengeance. Zathar's regiments struggled to contain the tidal wave of human fury, as if all their perseverance and defiance had exploded at once. This was no last gasp, however. Zathar knew that the humans finally sensed weakness in their enemy. They pressed their advantage ruthlessly. Therian commanders who had dismissed the humans as animals were now bleeding for reinforcements and extraction. Piles of Therian dead mounted as human troops sang their eerie battle hymns and came on tirelessly. Zathar himself barely escaped when his command post was overrun after 3 days of relentless human attack. Exhausted, low on ammunition, and staring defeat in the face, Zathar finally realized the truth about humanity. It was not biological resilience or psionic powers that drove them, but an almost fanatical solidarity and perseverance ingrained deeply in every man, woman, and child. He had drastically underestimated both the limits of human endurance and the monumental power of collective belief in themselves. The Grand Fleet had the same revelation as reports from Earth made clear the invasion was failing. Humanity could not be intimidated into submission or bombed into extinction. The Therians had utterly misjudged an enemy that did not measure victory and defeat as they did. Quelling this planet would cost more blood and treasure than the Grand Fleet was willing to sacrifice. When the order came to withdraw, Zathar expected a trap. Yet the humans simply watched the Therians flee over burning cities and did not pursue. They knew they had endured what their enemy could not, and were content to let them leave after a Pyrrhic victory that the Therians could not comprehend. As the tattered remnants of the Grand Fleet limped home, they carried a dire warning to others who might underestimate human endurance. This was a foe that held no concept of surrender. They would endure any hardship as long as necessary. Then fight back harder than you dare imagine. The humans had proved resilient beyond reason, and the Therians had discovered far too late that invading Earth exacted a terrible price.